As we see our monsoon storms continue, it's not uncommon to see kids in the desert playing in the floodwaters, but there are health risks associated with that. So here to talk to us about it is our ABC 15 Health Insider, Dr. Shad Marvasti. Good morning.
Good morning, Noelani.
So we know we need anything that we can do to get some water, and kids see water and they want to swim. So we do see this when there's flooding, but there are dangers lurking in that water. One of them, parasites.
That's right. There's a number of dangers, actually. Floodwater, any kind of standing water after a storm, it can be dangerous because it not only makes you vulnerable to infectious diseases like those that are born from parasites, it can also have chemical hazards. Chemicals that get in that water, and also injuries can happen because there's all sorts of debris and other things that are kind of in that water. And then stray animals, snakes and things like that tend to be around water like that, especially here in the desert. So really something that we need to avoid as much as possible is flood water.
So let's talk about ingestion of any of that storm water. What could happen to your body?
The parasite thing is particularly worrisome, and it can happen pretty quickly. Parasites are basically organisms that live in another species, and they can cause a whole wide range of symptoms. Usually, a lot of the parasites that we see cause a lot of stomach issues, like you start having stomach pain, you may have diarrhea or constipation or bloating, and that can happen within usually like a week or two after being exposed to one. And basically, it's an organism that's growing inside you. It's kind of a frightening thought and making you sick. And so, floodwater is definitely a source of this, just because everything kind of gets disrupted, and they're there in the desert in the dry sand, right, in different areas, but then it's all mixed in together in the water. And so they're just kind of floating around, so that even if you just have your hand come in contact with it, and then you bring your hand to touch your eyes, your nose, or your mouth, those are all the ways that it can get into your body. So anytime that you get, are exposed to floodwater, any parts of you or any things fall into the floodwater, you really have to be really careful about if there's a way to clean them and sanitize them, or discard them. If it's just like packaging or something, throw it away and then wash your hands thoroughly so that you don't get, one of those parasitic infections.
Now, we also know sometimes there is damage that happens with these storms. And so if you're a homeowner, you have to wade into the water on your property at times, maybe. So things to be aware of: if you have an open sore, what is the danger of exposing that?
Oh, absolutely. So any kind of wound that you have basically can get really infected. So just imagine, we know the expression pouring salt into a wound, but what about if you pour bacteria, and all sorts of dirt and sludge and grime into a wound? You're basically going to make it get infected. If it's not infected, it's going to get worse. So you can think about this flood water as really the dirtiest kind of water. Oftentimes it can also be, similar to kind of sewage water, really. I think that's probably the best way to think about it. You really want to use rubber boots, rubber gloves, goggles, be very careful if you can. If you have to do that, use the protective gear, and then really wash yourself thoroughly afterwards, and discard any items that can't be cleaned, with soap and water and sanitized.
As you mentioned before, it might take a couple days for you to realize there's a problem. So certainly the second you notice something is off, seek medical attention.
Absolutely. That's what we're there for you to come in anytime you have a question. Don't hesitate to do that if you've been exposed. And, we may see more and more of that, obviously, and we usually do during the monsoon season.
Right. We've still got some time to go with that.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate the guidance this morning. And remember, you can always send your health topics and questions to healthinsider@abc15.com.